propaganda. It's not a myth. You're creating a story for a specific purpose because they didn't want to admit that they were wrong. I mean, that goes on all the time in history, all the time.
What subject? So, I mean, you named a couple, but just, if you could just make a short list of subjects you think are, I guess, impervious to propaganda, I'll try to provide some examples.
So let's start with the couple that I mentioned.
Hold on.
Okay, so what's interesting about the computer science thing is like coding undergirds all of the algorithms that are manipulating people politically on social media. So that is not a source of propaganda is ironic, given that
it
reality.
actually isn't. the use of it is maybe propagandizing, but
that's the point.
Subject
If
matter
it's usable, Anthony, you just answered. If it's usable in any way by somebody,
words, putting strings of words together, sentences.
That's what large language models are built on. What are you talking about? It's the currency of today. Language is the currency.
Wait. No, just slow down. Because part of what you're saying is true. Like a lot of what coding consists in is just like writing a bunch of it's basically symbol manipulation, and you code things to carry out certain computational functions. That facet of coding isn't really that's not where the propaganda is, to your point. But it's in its utility, and it's also in philosophies around what you could employ these technical coding skills to accomplish, where the propaganda lies, right? So it's still within the domain of coding, right? Like one of the reasons why these algorithms tend to lean left in terms of the kinds of outputs they produce is because they are a reflection of the philosophies of the people who create those algorithms. That's not a trivial matter, and I think that serves my point quite well.
On top of this, if you're talking about STEM, there's this whole portion of the training sessions within the woke cohorts that talk about the language around the more scientific subjects, like biology or even math. And a way of, I think actually Paulo Freire has written a work that is dedicated specifically to how infect the education with some sort of propaganda or political message. So what they would do, for example, they would look at the math problem and they would frame it in such a way as to look at some sort of social issue of, for example, inequity. And solving the problem itself gives them an opportunity to talk about that specific issue and present it in a very specific propagandistic way in order to imprint it in the student's mind. So everything can be propaganda.
Amazing point, Andre. Very well stated. Thank you. You make a great point. I really don't have pushback, but excellent, well stated point. Thank you.
When the black man said it, it wasn't cool, but when Andre said
it... No. When somebody gets it, they get it. And Anthony is a man of integrity. He's definitely a pursuer of...
I'm clearly joking. I'm joking, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's any domain of learning that is impervious to propaganda in some way. Even the ones that you may feel are safer, like science, because of its emphasis on objectivity, could definitely be propagandized. I mean, I think the pandemic is actually the most recent and perfect example of the way science can be propagandized for all sorts of purposes. And it really is one of the biggest reasons why is because it's a domain of knowledge that requires, there's a lot of domains in science, and a lot of those domains require years of sustained study to be able to comprehend and grasp at a high level. And so laypersons typically don't have that level of engagement or years of experience of engagement with these complex subject matters like virology and epidemiology and things like that. And so those people can be told a lot of things that are demonstrably false, but they would never know because they just don't know enough. So so the ignorance makes that population of people. They're not ignorant because they're intellectually lacking. They just didn't go to school for that, so they just don't know. A population of people like that can be told all kinds of things for all kinds of nefarious purposes, and from their point of view, it sounds believable or it sounds reasonable. And then that's, the problem of medical misinformation and medical disinformation became all the rage under the COVID pandemic. But then even the experts or the people who are kind of speaking on their behalf also engaged, I think a lot of times inadvertently, but maybe sometimes not, in misinformation and disinformation. And they were motivated by trying to save lives, presumably. So, but their good intentions aside, it's still manifested in a lot of fuck shit, a lot of arguments, a lot of people feeling disenfranchised, a lot of people feeling like their liberties are being taken away for no reason, etc. Right? So, I think that's a great example in which, even something as solid and objective as medical science can be propagandized.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and it was really just like I said, it was just a thought exercise, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk about it. Yeah,
you are right.
And I actually learned
dwell on
something
history
along
too
the way.
much. You are right. People definitely do dwell on it too much, Anthony. There's nothing wrong with that value at all.
Some people like history. They like to dwell on it.
Yes, I agree with that.
I mean,
Alan,
man. I don't want to.
I'd like to reply to that.
I don't want to get too philosophical, but I do think that there is an interesting argument I do think there's an interesting argument to be had about the importance of history. I guess all of the humanities subject matters, but history in particular. And I guess I could try to make the case if people want. I don't want to go on a long diatribe, but I guess this main idea of the kind of argument one might give is, in order to know who you are, you need to know where you come from. And that is a nice thesis that I'll leave y'all with about why teaching history is actually essential. It's not just that it's something that's cool. And I think this is probably particularly important if you are a member of a historically marginalized group, because there's a lot of lessons of history that you and even members of, traditionally not marginalized groups can learn from, so that you don't repeat those negative aspects of history. You can consider that dwelling.
There's a lot of other aspects of history, right?
One more thing.
That's really problematic.
Let me just respond to him, Anthony.
Let me finish the sentence. I'm almost done. It's the last one. You can consider that dwelling of a certain type, but I don't think it's dwelling in the sense of just obsessing idly over it. I think it's being concerned about what the valuable lessons of it were, and then keeping those in mind moving forward. And I rest my mic.
All right, I was trying to get in to Alan, but Daniel, I haven't spoken at all, and I wanted to reply to Alan from 5 minutes ago. So Alan's comment was, some people dwell in our history and they live in it. And I think that's very sad. I think of driving a car. We need the rear view mirror to see where we've been, but we actually have to look through the windshield to see where we're going.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't mean that they dwell in it like it's sad. They find those things fascinating, is what I meant.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, well, okay. You heard dwell or fascinating?
No, I heard what you just said. You clarified
Can
what
you
you had
bring
to
with
say.
you,
I
Alan?
received it.
But I wanted to bring up another point because people were talking about roots. The book and the and then the TV series, which was the first time I heard about it. And the reason why I bring it up, because there's been controversy. Well, it wasn't based on fact, and there wasn't an actual guy, et cetera, et cetera. You can read about the history of the transatlantic slave trade, but did reading about it create as much impact and, dare I say, seem more truthful to people than seeing the miniseries on TV? Because I would argue seeing it, the fictionalized account of it, was more impactful and seemed more truthful to people. And that brings up the question of, well, when we're teaching, number one, when we're teaching any kind of history, how is it taught? But then also the question of, where do people find truth? And how do they find truth? And how do they relate to that? And aren't we often, admittedly, finding truth in things that we know are fictional to begin with? I don't know. Maybe somebody wants to answer.
I do, in this sense, and tying to what Black was saying about the essential nature of history to know where we come from, is these myths, not just propaganda that we identify with. I was alive at the time that Roots played for the first time. And I was in Canada. And it was a shockwave throughout the world, not just the United States. Those who could pick up that feed, the amount of people that were all gathered watching together was like all the people gathered watching the landing on the moon. Nobody had any perspective on the dimensions of what that meant. And it took people from having no knowledge to knowledge of it and wanting to study, and then finding out some fact and fiction that we all know now. So I think that's the truth of art. That's why it's not just fact when we're searching for truth, it's identity. And I don't think like we should just classify every fictional story as propaganda. That sort of buries finding out what propaganda actually is. And you don't get rid of propaganda, Anthony, in that exercise I'm glad we went through, but it does come from us figuring out the difference between a myth and a fact, and a myth and propaganda. You know, and I do think history, I can authentically believe in both, and we tend to over-rely on history, and agree with Anthony on that, but 20%, if it is, let's say, is essential. That's a very significant part of our daily life, that we carry all the years behind us that produced us, along with whatever we're living in 2024. We have to know where we came from.
Just real quick, Black. Just real quick.
Go ahead, because I want to
really
quick, Black. I'm gonna be quick.
Black.
Daniel said,
"No, you rest your mic, motherfucker."
With identity, and I would say it's not just identity. And to go back to what Alice said, it's not just about truth, but deeper still, it's about meaning, right? And I think that's one of the most important things about teaching history, and other things adjacent to that in the humanities. Go ahead, Adam.
All right. So
Thanks for that.
what I'm seeing a lot of is history actually being used as destiny. I see a lot of people elevating history and historical significance to the point where they feel like this defines people of the here and now. What people's ancestors did, what people's ancestors didn't do. It defines the mentality, the heart, the morals of the current people. And I think that is a huge, huge problem I see in society today.
I agree with
I
you.
haven't said much, but I genuinely think there is an issue with people understanding history. I'm just going to be really frank. People say history is important to them, but most people in America don't walk around with any more than 100 years of history in their head. They can't tell you about Reconstruction. They can't tell you about the colonial period. They can't tell you about the Civil War. They can't tell you about the Indian Wars. They can't tell you about the Banana Republic Wars. Hell, they can't even tell you about Korea. Most people emphasize history, and one of the unfortunate things in the historical community is that it started to be infused with these rose-tinted lenses of how people should see history with mid-21st century lenses on. The problem being, if most Americans say history is important, yet they only are walking around with 100 years of history in their head, then history is not actually important to them. What they mean is, walking around with things that throw into a conversation is important. Walking around with bits that are popular talking points is important. They don't actually mean history is important, because if they did, they would know more, right? Like, one of the, let's just say this is somebody who loves the subject, one of the most disheartening parts about history in modern America is that people will tell you how important it is, yet they will spend none of their time learning about how important it is. They won't read different books. They won't look at firsthand sources. They won't listen to recordings of, say, soldiers from World War I. Hell, one of the arguments over the Civil War can have more detail added to it by reading letters from Union and Confederate soldiers. Yet I'd be willing to bet, aside from, I'm just going to say this, it's not a brag, just something I enjoy. Aside from me and maybe 2 or 3 other people on this stage, nobody's ever read the damn things. So how in the world can history guide how we operate when people have nothing to compare to? 100 years of history in human recorded history is nothing, right? Like, one of the things that is most astonishing in the last 15 to 20 years, there's a site in Eastern Turkey called Göbekli Tepe that resets human settled civilization by 5,000 years, right? And I'm not expecting people to know about Göbekli Tepe, but my point is, we talk about history in popular culture as if it's important, and yet nobody genuinely devotes the time to it. It's like participating in local politics, right? People say it's important. They give lip service to what it is, yet they spend no time actually doing the work that will make anything any different. And history is the same. If all you're doing is walking around with 100 years of history in your head tops, then you didn't know anything to begin with. And you physically cannot learn the lessons that history teaches because you don't have a long timeline with which to compare human behavior. I'll end with this. History doesn't repeat itself because the events repeat themselves. History repeats itself because the behavior that precipitates those events repeat themselves. Humans repeat the same behavior over and over and over and over again. And our history is part of learning how to control those repeated emotions of love, greed, lust, gluttony, foolishness, evil. And without truly searching, we can never really genuinely say we understand anything. I hate to put it that way, because it makes most Americans have to be just absolute illiterate morons when it comes to this stuff. And I mean it in that way that it sounds. But if we were able to devote more time to it, listen to an audiobook or a podcast, we would walk away with much more in our head and much more to compare to. And I know I said I didn't, but I'll end on this. The education department, for example, all of the knowledge we've acquired in the Western world, say from the early 1200s onward, relies on a way of educating people and a way of transmitting information. And the modern education department, in part, takes some of the way that it operates from those 1,000 years of lessons. And unless we know what those lessons are, we're doomed to repeat the same behavior that made them do the stupid, evil things in the first place.
So history is important, and I just wanted to clarify because I got lost a little bit, buddy, and I love listening to you talk many, many times. But on this particular one, I was not as clear at the end, or at the beginning, I should say, as maybe I am at the end. You are saying history is important, essential.
I'm saying history is critical for understanding the way forward. And the problem is, we like to tell ourselves in America something that is not true. We like to tell ourselves history is important, and we like to tell ourselves that we understand it, when most Americans walk around with less than 100 years of history in their head. And you can't understand good decision makings or emotional trends in history unless you have more than 100 years. Having 100 years of history in your head, it makes you essentially functionally illiterate. I don't think it's what people intend, but that's the effect. If 100 years is all you have, then Lord, you have missed a lot of human experience.
I'll just say that I don't think people 300 or 400 years ago would have the luxury of being able to hold 100 years there, given the state of education.
I mean, I'll say the founders.
It could be a lot better. It could be a lot better. I agree with you. I just want to establish that whatever we think about what's corrupt about history or not done well enough about history or what shouldn't be taught about history, or all those arguments, I think it sounds like the one agreement we have that the amount of history we should be teaching is not zero, right? We shouldn't toss it out.
Well,
I think Black was making that case as I am too. Maybe he says it very differently, but it's essential.
So I'll give you an example in American history. Those who were taught at the nascent universities, the Browns, the Princetons, the Harvards, were taught classical education. Meaning you look at Greece, Rome, Babylonia, Assyria, one of the oldest cities in the Fertile Crescent. But if you were, say, Washington, you went to surveyor school and you never went, you got the same sense of historical literacy from the performance of Shakespeare's plays. Caesar, Cato, Cicero, any number of other things. Point being, 400 years ago, people, the average people, walked around with more in their head than we do today. Not because they went to university, but because the popular plays and ways of amusing yourselves at the time used the past to tell stories. And we don't do that much anymore.
Yeah, I think
I just want to say really quick, I agree with Marshall. As someone, and I have a master's degree, a doctorate, and half another doctorate in biomedical natural sciences, and scientists are the most siloed, often useless people. Darwin understood medicine, natural history. He was very well-rounded. Most physicians today have never taken a course in evolution. Can you believe that? Scientists are not only among the most arrogant asswipes on the planet, but they're so limited in their scope. There was a guy in here earlier who went to MIT, very good with numbers, but completely lacks empathy and appreciation for the human condition, always needs empiricism to drive him, and it's such a failure. I'm reading a great book about marketing by Harry, whatever you guys know his name, Harry, Wedgworth. He says research is great, but sometimes research doesn't tell us anything. Often it doesn't tell us anything, and often it misses the boat. Now, you could argue that you need a good sample size to do rigorous science and base your work on something substantive, right? But scientists are so siloed because they don't get exposure. They don't often read in their free time about the history of Western civilization, as Marshall talks about kind of the human condition, appreciating, what other people went through. There's so much poignancy to that kind of stuff. And physicians and I hate to say engineers too, they're so focused on things, or people in the life, health, physical sciences, etc., engineering, STEM. I think they're largely very siloed.
And I think from where you're saying, just to make sure I'm clear on where you side on this conversation we've been having about what is essential in terms of education, that history is part of that it is essential to you. Is that right?
100%. I think history should drive so much else, right? Because strengths and weaknesses, where civilization failed, where it worked. You understand things in terms of a timetable of the evolution of, say, technology or the Industrial Revolution. you're going to find people who can do the test. I mean, look at AI. AI cannot replace our appreciation for the human condition. It can replace the mechanistic aspects of exercising what we know about science, right? And implementing things. But history should be a driving factor. Sorry, Anthony's pissed at me, I'm sure, but that's my take.
Anthony is a curious man.
More than history, music should be essential to education. And I'm not biased at all in that opinion, but
it's absolutely essential. It's totally essential. So is language.
I think that the arts in general, not just music, get downplayed in the status quo as far as our public education system in a way that undersells their value. So the arts and the humanities are kind of bedfellows in that way. But there is there are considerations about the practical utility in the long term for given certain kinds of societal goals. And so that might account for why certain subject matter gets downplayed in certain, historical periods and whatnot.
But like to Alan's point, there had been actually research done in that direction, and it turned out that there are no other activity that engages your brain to that extent. And there have also been longevity studies. UC San Francisco Medical School did this. Dublin University in Dublin did this, and I think one of the German schools did this. I mean, they were not collaborating; they did it independently. They came with the same results that children who engage in music prior to, I think it was age 13, 14, their brain develops differently. So if you have kids,
imagine, God says that he can work miracles through the wickedness of men, that these Muslims and stuff are learning the entire Christian scripture to try to defeat Christians in their arguments, in their theological debate. But imagine when this stuff actually starts to come to pass in Revelation and they see it, how many people are going to become Christians? And I tell the BHI this, I don't know if anybody's BHI, but I tell them all the time, so many BHIs, so many Muslims, so many different people and stuff like that are going to read the scriptures trying to defeat Christian theology and Christian understanding of scripture, then they're all learning the book. And then when this stuff starts to come to pass, it's going to be undeniable for so many people. Just like even Jeremy was willing to concede that if that were to happen, he would have to look at, reevaluate it, which is pretty awesome.
I'm a Muslim and I don't use the Bible for none of that stuff you just said.
Yeah, but I mean, if you were a Dalgandist, then you would. Muhammad Hijab and Alibaba and or whatever his name is, Ali Dawa or whatever.
Oh, no,
Hijab and those guys on Speaker's Corner and stuff are learning the scriptures inside out.
Yeah.
Islamic Caesar here online is starting to learn everything about the New and Old Testament, and when this stuff comes to pass,
Rich, can I answer something? Do you have a lot of interactions with Muslims outside of this app? And if you do, even if it's not a lot, can you describe the delta between your interactions with those Muslims versus the Muslims you interact with on Clubhouse?
Oh yeah, I mean, most Muslims in general don't know their scriptures, just like most Christians don't know their scriptures.
I'm sorry, and then just to be clear, so you're saying that your interaction with Muslims in the real world is based on the second you engage with those folks, is you talk about scripture and you realize that
I'm specifically talking about the people that are anti-Christian evangelists. They even Toby Singer.
Sure, but
Toby Singer is a world-renowned evangelical Jew who hates Christianity, but he's learning the entire New Testament. So hopefully, when he sees this stuff coming to pass in Revelation, on earth, that he'll maybe reevaluate it. That's all.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that in your experience, do the Muslims that you encounter and interact with on Clubhouse, are they representative of the everyday Muslim?
Oh, no, because like I said, the majority of Christians, Jews, and Muslims don't know their scriptures. 90% of the Christians I know in real life, 90% of the Muslims I know in real life, don't even know anything about their scriptures. They parrot stuff, like, oh, Jesus says to love everybody. Jesus said, repent, for the kingdom of the Lord is at hand. He went and chased the money changers out of the temple. I mean, there's all different types of things. And he also comes back in Revelation and wipes out the entire earth and makes it clean again.
But to be fair, he also never mentioned the scriptures. He never once said, worship me. He said, follow me. But he also said, as a commandment,
100% said he worship me.
Love thy neighbor as you
would
love
yourself.
yourself.
God and worship me. Jesus
he
said
said,
that.
The meek shall inherit the earth.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
These are commandments.
Yep. And Jesus said, I am God and worship me multiple times.
So what I'm saying is that if most Christians or even most, followers of Abrahamic faith go about their day trying to be happy, do good, because that's what they think their faith tells them to do, and raise kids and just contribute to humanity, like, do you feel they're being more Christ-like?
It's based on salvific issues. So, do they believe the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit eternally existing as one God, three persons? Christ came, died, rose again on the third day. Atoned for our sins. Hold on. Atoned for our sins. And that you're saved by faith alone and not by your works. These are salvific issues.
Question. Where did Jesus say, I am God, worship me?
Oh, yeah. He said, truly, truly, before Abraham was, I am. He called himself the great I am. Also in Revelation, he calls himself the one.
No, I'm talking
John
about
1:1
Jesus.
talks about that he is.
Jesus said that. So
I know. Jesus says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. And if you knew the Tanakh and you actually study this, the I am spoken about is where God is speaking through the burning bush to Moses. And Moses says, what shall I call you? And he says, I am the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. And as soon as Jesus says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, not before Abraham was born, but before Abraham was even thought of, the beginning of time, when God knows the beginning and the end, which I don't know if you're a Muslim or BHI, but you agree that God knows the beginning and the end. God knew Abraham before even the creation of the universe. And that Jesus is saying, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. And even at the time of Jesus, uttering the word I am was the declaring yourself as God. That's why the Jews call him Hashem, which means the Jews themselves call God Hashem, which means the name. That's why Jews don't say Yudeh-Haveh, Yahweh. That's why they don't say God. They don't say Allah. They would say Hashem, because they honor and respect and fear God so much that they would only utter just the word, name. So Jesus says, I am. He declared himself to be God. He said, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. I'm trying to finish, if you would let me finish. And they picked up stones to stone him to death because they knew he was declaring himself to be God.
No, that's not what the book says.
That's exactly what it is. He says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am.
The scripture where Jesus said, I am God, worship me.
Yes, because by definition of him being God and declaring himself to be God, he is saying to worship him because God is to be worshipped.
I heard what you said.
Are we to worship God?
Where Jesus said, I am God, worship me. Would you just stayed on the stage?
An explicit verse.
In the Bible where it says, Jesus said, I am God, worship me. You said Jesus
no interpretation.
Said that, right? Hold on. You said Jesus said that. That's what you said. So I'm asking you to show me in the scripture where Jesus said, I am God, worship me.
Okay, John 8:48 through 59.
Where is it? Tell me again.
John 48 through 59.
John 48, 59?
John 8, 48 through 59.
John 8, 48,
the Jews answered him, are we not right in saying that you are a Samaritan and have a demon? Jesus answered, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Yet I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks it.
She's always dolled out. She would have everything. No, she was breeding them at first, but her her children stopped visiting her, so now her dogs are her children. And can I be honest with y'all? My cat finna be her child too. My cat is going right to her. I think she's coming over here on Saturday. Yes, she is. Bye-bye, kitty. She is holding her for 2 weeks. She is holding her for 2 weeks. But I know she loves animals. If I can leave my cat with somebody, I don't want to leave her at home. You know, I'm over this nigga because I just know that, you know, he only loves my cat because he loves me. But she's going to take care of her for 2 weeks because I know she's an animal lover. Yeah, if y'all see this shit, I wish I could show y'all this thing.
I'm not sure. I understand the word.
Marzuki system. Is that Arabic? Or
Yes.
Marzuki?
I know.
What would be in English? You mean about the Islamic system?
No, Al-Marzuki, which is like this guy, he was, they took the king, they put Marzuki into the power, then Marzuki, he said, hey guys, British, I'm sorry guys, I'm not giving you all the oil. I'm not giving the oil to the Brits. I have to stop it. Then the CIA comes back and put the Shah back into the power. Then the Shah actually abuse his power. The Iranian people revolt. Then they choose the Islamic State. So this is not Iranian people. This is the West. The West done this all the West did this to Iranian. This is how Iran, Morocco. I don't know about Morocco, but I think about Iran. This is what you may believe. I think you may stupid believe. I think this is what you guys did to the Iranian people. That's why they don't trust anymore anything coming from the West. Because what
the Iranian people, and there's Iranians in the room, that they don't have a problem trusting the West. I mean, what you're referring to, some of it's true, but the Iranian people, look, I'm going to shut up. We have two Iranians here. They can talk for themselves.
Let me tell you, Mark. See, Iranian are people who believe in peace. They like to live in the whole world as a kind of the great place to live with whatever that is needed. But this regime and also the ideology of Islam in terms of the government is a terrible, is a terrorist base and whatever else. I am not going to insult any religion. That is not my part. We believe human rights and those things. But in my country, the religion has ruined all of my history, my belief, or whatever that it is. So Iranian, now most of them, maybe more than 90% of them, are against any dictatorship and also against any religion. This is, they may not want to interfere with the religion, with the private part of their life, but what it is over there is that they don't believe that. Maybe they have changed their mind after 30, 40 years when they face with the kind of ideological regime. But now what it is, they love Western countries and the culture. They love to be modernized. They like to be life. If you look at their motto, woman, life, freedom, is what they think right now and what they are fighting for that.
Well, I understand. I really believe. I think I actually trust you in your point, but you cannot deny how many Iranian people that have been really when there is we have Marzuki system. When you remember when there is a national.
Okay.
Just hold on.
Marzuki system. You're saying something that we're from Iran and we don't know what it is. If you're talking about Islamic laws, national of the oil. When he want to take the oil from the Brits, he want to take the resources of the country to belong to the nation. And they changed the system back then. The CIA. The CIA come in there.
How was this related to majority of Iranians? I really don't understand. I like you to enlighten me.
To understand it is like, there is people that believe actually in a country, and there is people outside of the country, like America. This is America doing this. And this is back in, I think, in 60s, whatever, probably 50s. And they come and they manipulate these people.
Sorry, Mark. Somebody down there is asking to come up. Wahab, you want to participate in the discussion?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Didn't see that.
Welcome, Wahab.
Good evening, everybody. Good morning and good evening, everybody. I'm just here to explain. I'm going with Jeff and Mr. Khan. So Islam is not belong to Iran. Marzouki family, which Mr. M or I don't know, is talking about that belong to Iranian south parts, and they are at the present are living in, if I'm right, about United Arab Emirates. They are living there and belong to the oil industry. But let me tell you something. Islam does not belong to Iran. They are practicing Islam since 1400 years ago, but the radical part of Islam, which is going to Shiite or something, as they are trying now since the last 460 years ago. So if you just study our history, which is going till 7,000 years ago, none of Iranian they're Muslims or something else. So that's why, let me tell you something. The near future, which is coming now, and the revolution which happened by Iranian people in Iran is on the way still. The future of Iran is absolutely Islam free. I'm not Islam fighter. I'm not against your beliefness or something, but we will get our country back, and we will back again to our origin beliefness, which is has nothing to do with Islam, if you understand me, guys. And just look around what happened in the Middle East with Islam activities, Islam beliefness, Islam way of life. I don't know what they call that all, but definitely in the future, which is coming now, I would guess about maybe in 2 or 3 months, Iran will start definitely the new life with the most strong revolution in the world, which happened by the ladies, by the women, and is still going on. That's it.
I'm still confused. What were you talking about? Were you conflating some other word with Mossadegh? You talking about the government before the?
I'm talking about the government.
Not you. I'm talking to Isa.
Oh, sorry.
Or Masan. I don't know which is his first name.
No, the whole point is like, why we have Islamic Republic, and why there's a Khomeini that Iran kicked him out, a Shah, kick that guy. A Khomeini kicked him out.
All right, we get it. You think the West did something wrong by getting rid of the Shah? Or getting rid of Mossadegh?
No. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's irrelevant. Like, the people of Iran hate the current government. You want to complain about the West? They're not complaining about the West.
No. I'm talking about.
What's funny is Morocco is trying to be part of the West. Your king is actually very good. Like, what are you trying to?
No. I think there's a big deal. Right now, I think even in Afghanistan, my brother, America spent 20 years in Afghanistan. They try like.
You know, the topic of the room isn't how America ruined the world. If you that room is actually down the hall. If you want to have that conversation, I invite you to go there.
You're sucking up the air.
No, just speak.
No. Hold on, Isa. Like I said, I'm Moroccan. I live in America. The topic of the room is not how to blame America for everything that's wrong with the world. There are lots of rooms on this app for that. This is not that one. So if you want to have a hold on, if you want to have a conversation about Iran, where you're not the only one arguing with Iranians, that's fine. You can have that conversation. But if you want to just take the time, waste my time by blaming America for everything, which, you know, America has some culpability. You're right. But that's not what anyone in the room wants to discuss.
Okay.
So if that's the topic you want to discuss, I invite you to go do it elsewhere.
Leave. Be like a tree. Be like a tree. I see lots of trees right now. They got leaves on them.
Oh, that's not very nice, but I would like to.
No, I was extremely polite. And I gave you a lot of time to
you just rampaged on us, saying the U.S. sucks and Iran is fucking the shit. Okay, bro, listen. I know before this, 1980, when it was a beautiful place and it was Persia, and lately it's turned to shit. So we don't like it, and if you don't like it, then get the fuck out. Have a nice night.
Never mind that. As a Moroccan, I'll just say you are defending the government that supports Algeria, which is your enemy. So I think you need to check your loyalty to your government and your country, because what you're doing isn't right, correct, helpful, or honest. And with that, I will move on to people who are more useful.
And no more warnings. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was about to put the fuck.
Oh, actually, Jeff and Green, I think we are here for not telling that we are supporting which government. We are here as a human, and we will enjoy from talking from different.
That's right. That's why we're here.
This is actually a social room. The only reason I changed the title to this was because we had a bunch of haters come in.
Can I tell you something about Morocco? May I tell you something about Morocco?
Sure, Mahab.
You guys have a nice tagines. I've been to Morocco for 8 years ago to different cities. I got the tagine fish, tagine chicken, tagine meats, different ways. And Moroccan are very, very, very easygoing people. I couldn't understand why the M couldn't follow us, but Moroccan are nice people and very easygoing.
Yeah, I mean, the anti-West thing isn't common in Morocco. I'm not going to lie. He's a unique fella.
Yeah, I used to be there too. I didn't see any kind of extremism activity or reaction. And that was, even I visited the Mohammed II Palace, and that was really great place, and they opened
in
the whole
Agadir,
palace
right?
to the people.
Kai, this is in Agadir, right?
No, that was in Casablanca. Agadir is very, very beautiful place too.
There is also another palace of King of Saudi Arabia. I've been to Tagazout and around, they all belong there, but nice people around. Nice people.
Yeah, even in Rabat, in Marrakesh Square, I really enjoyed during the night time, everywhere dancing, different things. Whenever that I was there, that was really great.
Okay, I changed the title of the room in honor of you fellas.
Oh, that's great. You're into too. Oh,
maybe we can move off.
You didn't ask us how come that Iranians so in love with Morocco.
Look, I'm Moroccan. I know why you're in love with Morocco.
No. It wasn't me. No, I was just war tour. I got a war tour. That's why I was visiting Morocco. But we are not for that case which you are meaning.
I mean, sadly, my mother came from Algeria, so like I have to, you know, a little bit further back we were Moroccan, so can't really support Algeria these days. Sarah, you keep leaving us. What the fuck?
I'm here.
I'm sorry. I should have said that better. Sarah, you leave. I miss you. Sarah June, Azizam.
Yeah.
No, I'm here.
You know,
It's just I'm not used to your room being like political talk.
I know, we're like, what the fuck ourselves.
I know, even I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
We're all like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on here? This is not what we're supposed to use to.
Everybody goes through the phase when they first hear me actually talk international politics because they're like, wait, you're the analingus guy. Why do you know stuff?
Right. You like to get gas. I don't understand how you know so much about politics.
Why do you know stuff about politics? I don't get it.
I don't get it.
you know,
Doesn't
we
make
talk
any
about
fucking
mac
sense.
and cheese,
How do you know all this shit?
lasagna.
That's what they're thinking. How do you know all this shit? This doesn't make any fucking sense. They're like talking about sex. Doesn't that make sense?
That's right.
In this room, the talk is about food, sex, what else?
Food, sex,
Stuff like that. Once in a while, the anti-Semitic people come down there and then they talk shit and then we say something, someone says something and then they get removed and that's about it.
Yep. Yeah.
But right now, it went to where? It went to whole world politics.
Hello, Glenice. Welcome to my room.
Hello.
Glenice. And I know what your real name is, but hi.
Hi.
And I was controlling myself, Jeff, to not say anything to that M guy. I don't like to hear. I don't like to hear people talk shit about America.
I kind of know where your temper lives.
Yeah, like I don't even like to hear Americans talk crap about America. And then like, no.
No. Plus you're Iranian, so you don't like Arabs to begin with.
Then he's like defending Iran's government and talking crap about you.
That was really. I gotta say that was kind of new for me. A pro-Iranian Moroccan.
I'm funny. He's coming from Morocco. Much more funny.
Well, we don't know if he was. Was he?
No, he was Moroccan. He was Moroccan. He was
Moroccan.
He was Moroccan.
Yeah, you can find different people from different countries, so no problem. But
Yeah,
the
that
best
was
word that you said, yeah, the best word was no, Sarah, to all of this shit.
What was funny though is I really didn't get a sense when he realized I was a Jewish Moroccan. He went out of his way to say we love the Jews, we love this, we just hate America. It was very strange.
That is really strange how it could be.
And we all love America. I'm like, no. He needs to stop.
So if you're talking in Arabic?
I mean, I'm North African. No one there really speaks Arabic.
I know that. I don't like to say that you talking. Even in that time in Morocco, everybody says you are from North Africa. You are not Arabic, but I'm talking about the language, not about the.
Oh yeah, the language
of Arabic country.
The language they speak is 70% not Arabic. They call it Arabic, but it really comes as if.
Yes, Berber and French, I guess.
But I don't speak that language. I grew up speaking French.
Oh,
Just French.
What is
français, monsieur?
Oui, je parle français. Okay.
What is Tamazight? Is that different language?
Tamazight is the North African Arabic.
Oh, and some of the slang and those things are totally different, kind of?
I mean, it's like 70% different.
Oh, okay. Oh, 70%.
Yeah, it's a very different language than classical Arabic or Egyptian Arabic.